Hey guys, and welcome back to Z3 Cubing. Back when I first learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube, the year was 2010. Now, I was oblivious to it at the time, but the hobby was growing rapidly in popularity, and cubing competitions were getting bigger each year. Early speed cubes, however, were still in their infancy, with the revolutionary Dian Guhong having just been released. As a super casual cuber, I didn't even know that anything existed outside of a Rubik's brand, which is why I used this cube as my main for so many years. So recently, I started thinking, if I could go back and give my 8-year-old self one 3x3 to replace his pitifully bad one, what would it be? I don't think I would choose a GAN cube, even though I really like them today. This thing just looks a little bit too futuristic. Plus, stickerless cubes weren't even WCA legal back then. I also want to keep the cost down to a pretty reasonable level, which is why I decided to go with my favorite budget speed cube, the Moyu RS3M 2020. This thing is amazing for speed solving, but I also think it would be stable and controllable enough for a not so great speed cuber, unlike a GAN cube. It comes in black plastic, which is going to be really important not only for past me, but also for this video. And by the way, when I say budget cube, I really mean it. This thing is only $9, and it's still one of the best 3x3s on the market. You can get this or anything else at thecubicle.com for 5% off using discount code Z3Cubing. Link in the description. So here is the cube itself. Let's try it out. Yep, it feels just like the one I have. It also comes with this nice little Moyu stand, as well as this accessories box, which has some little instruction booklets, as well as a couple tools, a screwdriver, and this elasticity adjustment tool, which both will be very useful later. Anyway, what I did know about in 2010 was a company called Cubesmith. I promise this is relevant. They were a big manufacturer of stickers back in the day. You could get any shades you could imagine for any of dozens of types of puzzles, all for really good prices. But their ultimate product, as far as I was concerned, were called Cubesmith Tiles. Today, you might think of tiles as just colored plastic pieces built into the puzzle itself, but no, these were actual adhesive stickers, just thicker and far more durable than what you'd find anywhere else. I put a set of tiles on this cube over a decade ago, and the only damage is a little tiny chip on one corner. So what better stickers to add to our 2010 Speed Cube than Cubesmith Tiles? It'd be laughable back in the day to not have these on your cube. But the problem is, where in the world do you get a brand new set of tiles from a company that went out of business over 5 years ago? Well, here's where. This is an almost brand new Rubik's Cube, with freshly applied Cubesmith tiles from around about 2015, then essentially never used afterward. Why do I own this cube? Well, I don't exactly. This is my little brother's 3x3. Now, I think it's safe to mention this because I don't think he actually watches my videos, but basically he insisted on getting a 3x3 and having tiles on it, but then he never even got around to learning how to solve it. Considering it's been sitting in my room for most of its existence, I think it's safe to say that he's forgotten about it. So, my plan today is not only to set up this new 3x3 with all the little lubes and modifications that I prefer, but also to apply a set of, well, quite old stickers onto it. In effect, I hope to create the ultimate 3x3 that would blow the mind of a cuber from 2010. So, let's get started. Now first up, let's talk about everything that I'm going to do to the inside of the cube. Now the Moyu RS3M 2020 is known for having quite weak magnets, so the solution to that, of course, is to just add more magnets, which is actually a lot easier than it sounds. In fact, thecubicle.com, which I mentioned earlier, actually sells a set of 24 extra magnets to add to your RS3M 2020 for just $1. I'll link those down in the description as well. These aren't the exact same magnets, in fact they're probably a little bit too strong, but they will work. I'll show you how to do it right now. It's super easy. Just take apart the whole cube. I'll just do one edge for demonstration purposes, but basically you're gonna pop open each edge just like that, and then just take one magnet and then drop it right on top of the magnet that you already see in each half of the edge. There's no need to worry about how you're placing it. You just pick up the half an edge, drop the magnet in there. Do that with both halves, and then put the edge back together. Repeat that, 2 magnets per edge on all the edges, and reassemble your cube, and you're good to go. As for me, while the cube is disassembled, I'm also going to pop off all the center caps, and then use a screwdriver to disassemble the core. I'm going to lube the core, basically just to reduce spring noise, which I had a lot of on my old one, so I'll put some lube where the spring touches the plastic and the screw. Normally I would use Lubical Black for this, but I'm going to experiment with just using basic old Weight 4. It's cheaper, so more people can use it, and I also find that sometimes your core lube starts to seep into the pieces a little bit, which can get a little bit messy when it comes to Lubical Black. I'm going to reassemble everything and then apply my piece lubes. I finally got a set of Angstrom lubes, and I've been using them like crazy since then, so I'll put a bit of Angstrom Gravitas deep down in the tracks of the pieces, down here for controllability, and then a bit of Angstrom Dignitas just in the upper part of the pieces for more speed and smoothness. I'll also add maybe 1 drop of DNM37 if I want things to get a touch faster. I'll link to where you can get all of these lubes down in the description below. Finally, I'll open up the centers one last time and adjust the tensions until I get them just where I like them, and then I'll go ahead and use this little tool to set the elasticity to 4 or 5 clicks or just whatever feels best. Now that's it for the inside of the cube. As for the outside, well, of course you gotta take the stickers off first. I'll use a knife for that. But as for transferring a 6-year-old set of stickers onto a brand new cube, well, there's no set procedure for that. I've definitely never done that before, so I'm gonna be kind of making things up as I go along. I figure a knife and maybe some super glue might be handy, but mostly I'm just gonna be really careful about not damaging any of the tiles. This is the one time where I'm hoping their adhesive isn't very good, but in reality, I think it's gonna be pretty strong and pretty hard to get off. But there's only one way to find out, and that is to get started with the time lapse. Alright, and here is the result. Now, despite this feeling in my hands like an old Rubik's brand from the early 2010s, it is in fact a very capable Speedcube, well up to the standards of what I would use as my main. After almost an hour of careful setup, this thing turns about as well as a $9 cube possibly could. Here is the forwards corner cutting, it can go about to there, and the backwards corner cutting about like that. The lubes that I used, in addition to adjusting the tensions and elasticity, just make this cube feel amazing. I feel like ever since I started using Angstrom lubes, I've just been able to set up cubes properly, and they just feel nice. The magnet strength is way better than on the stock cube, in fact maybe even a little bit too strong, but like I mentioned, I didn't get the nice ones from the cubicle, I just got some random ones off the shelf and threw them in. But I don't mind it too much. The biggest thing is that they do make the cube quite a bit heavier than it was before, which is a little bit weird coming from a very lightweight GAN cube, but again, it's not that bad, less than 100 grams for sure. I guess that's just one more thing that makes it feel more like a Rubik's brand, in addition to, of course, these very squared off looking tiles. Now, speaking of tiles, it's time to address the main topic at hand. And first, I want to address a pretty serious issue that you've probably already seen. These two defects were not here when I finished gluing the tiles to this puzzle. In fact, this defect was not here when I started filming a few minutes ago. There are a few little scratches on the edges, as you can see maybe right there and right there, that were caused by the knife as I was prying them off the old puzzle. I thought that would be the worst of it, but as it turns out, I was very wrong. Now, as I alluded to earlier, the adhesive on the back of these tiles was actually very good. I haven't cleaned up this old Rubik's brand yet, so there's still a lot of sticky stuff all over it. And yeah, there was an equal amount of sticky stuff on the back of the tiles, but obviously not enough to stick it to the new cube. Most stickers are one-time use only. So that's where the super glue came in. So over the course of about an hour and a half, I managed to pry off all the old tiles and glue them onto this puzzle. And I thought it looked very, very nice. There were no imperfections that were really noticeable. At least that was until I first tried to turn it. That's when this first major problem appeared. Now, I believe the reasoning behind this is that these tiles are actually kind of this clear protective sheet with the coloring actually on the back. And so, after supergluing the tiles onto this new cube, it seems like the color part of them stuck better than the actual tile part of them. What must have happened is I got a fingernail stuck under here, pried it up. The green part underneath there remained fully glued to the cube, separating itself from the outer coating and creating this ugly little spot. I thus decided to trim all my fingernails, and it turns out it didn't help, because as I was just filming some of my first turns, this one randomly appeared. It must be especially a problem with the green color, because this one also got the most scratches along the sides as I was peeling them off, and this has the only two major defects. So I guess the moral of the story is that tiles are nice and durable as long as you don't superglue them to a cube that they don't fit. The other big problem is that, of course, there are rounded corners on this cube, whereas these are very much not rounded. Okay, it's now about a day later, and as I was editing, I decided that I really didn't like the sad note that I was going to leave this video on, so I decided to do something to fix it. I mentioned the biggest problem was that these tiles were not designed for modern speed cubes with their rounded off corners, and so I decided to round off the corners myself. Basically, I just took an X-Acto knife and made 2 or 3 cuts on each of these little corners and just did that all around the cube. It took maybe an hour. Not only does this make the cube look a lot nicer in general, but it also drastically reduces the chances of me snagging a sharp corner with a fingernail and causing more of those ugly problems like we saw on the green side. Now, speaking of the green side, I was actually able to fix one of those defects, the biggest, ugliest one right in the middle. I actually found an unused scrap of tile material. Turns out I have a giant bag full of all the old scraps from all the different puzzles I ever put tiles on. And so it turns out I had one extra 2x2 tile from a 1x2x2, which obviously doesn't need all 4. And I managed to cut that down to size and put it onto the center of this 3x3. So yeah, I'm really happy about how that turned out. Trimming down the corners also made this little defect look a little bit less ugly. And so now I should be able to confidently do a little bit of speed solving. I'll still be pretty careful with it, but now I shouldn't have to worry too much about any other major problems developing. Anyway, now that I got this cube all scrambled up, let's go ahead and do a quick solve. So let's do some inspection. Okay, and 3, 2, 1, go. So yeah, I think this project was actually a really big success. I'm a lot happier with it now than I was when I was finishing off the video yesterday. Not only did we create a cube with performance that would blow the mind of any cuber from 2010, but we also managed to do the cool thing and transplant an old unused set of tiles onto a brand new, ready-to-use cube. So yeah, I'm really glad I tried out this crazy experiment in the first place, and I'm also glad that I managed to figure out a solution to the problem that almost ruined this cube. I hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, but that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys next time.